Hi, I'm Amy, the Nourishing Gardener, and today I want to try to get two things done. I want to go into the garden and treat my kale and broccolini for some cabbage moth damage, and I want to get this big thing of jalapenos behind me pickled up. We're going to get started by canning the jalapenos. I like to can my jalapenos in a slightly sweet pickling brine. It's a very simple brine, a very simple recipe, and it just smells so good once it's done pickling. So to start pickling the peppers, we need to cut them into rounds. I like a medium thickness for my peppers. I also like to de-seed my peppers. I do not like the texture of seeds in almost anything, so I like to take the extra effort and de-seed the pepper. To de-seed them, I just use my fingers and I just pop the center out and do the best I can. And not all the pepper slices have seeds in them, which is kind of nice. Our total harvest of jalapenos during the garden tour was 6 pounds of jalapenos. That brought the total of jalapenos to about 15 pounds for the 2025 season. We still might get to harvest a few more jalapenos before the frost hits, but we'll see. It'll really depend on the weather. The variety jalapeno I grew this year is called Black Magic. It's an incredibly high yielding jalapeno. And they're not terribly hot. Like, they have a kick to them. I wouldn't be feeding them to your kids necessarily, but they aren't so hot that you can't eat a fair number of them. We like to use pickled jalapenos on pizzas in particular. There's something special about the smell of pickled jalapenos. It really brings out that jalapeno scent, in my opinion. And when you open a fresh jar of pickled jalapenos on a cold winter's day, mix it in some cornbread with some chili. I'm thinking of overwintering some of my pepper plants this year to see if that increases my yield, because you can't have too many jalapenos. Not in this house anyways. I will find a way to use all the jalapenos. Jalapeno poppers, that's something that I did not make this year, and we're heading out of town, so I won't have time to run to the grocery store to grab what I need to make jalapeno poppers. And I don't happen to have it on hand. So I think we might use the pickled jalapenos to make jalapeno popper bites, which are like breaded circles, instead of stuffed jalapenos this year. There's always ways to use your garden produce. If you're pickling jalapenos, what do you like to use your pickled jalapenos for? And do you like a pickly pickled jalapeno, or do you like the cowboy candy jalapeno? They're very, very sweet pickled jalapenos. I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments below. I'm not sure how many jars I'm gonna need to pickle all of these. I think my canner can fit about 9 jars at a time. We might have to do 2 batches. We got the jalapenos all finished and chopped up. That took a minute, but we are finally ready to move on to the next step of pickling the jalapenos, which is making our brine. It's a very simple brine. It only takes 3 ingredients. It's just vinegar, salt, and sugar. So we're gonna start with 2 cups of vinegar. I'm making a double recipe. We might need more, but I can always make more. I can't make less. 2 cups of vinegar, half a cup of sugar, and a 1/4 cup of salt. While I wait for the brine to reach a boil, I'm also getting my canner going so that it's nice and warm, and I'm warming my jars in a sink of very, very, very hot water. You want, when you're canning, for everything that you're using liquid-wise, canner, jars, to be the same temperature so that there's no thermal shock when you put the jars in the hot water. To the clean jar, you're gonna pack your jalapenos, and when I mean pack, I mean pack. Otherwise, you will have jalapenos floating in a lot of brine, and you will go through a lot of brine and a lot of jars that way and not get any real volume of jalapeno into your jars. We have a lot of jalapenos that need to go into these jars. I try my best not to break too many of them, but some of them breaking is inevitable. So I like to fill my jars halfway up with broth first before filling the whole jar when canning jalapenos, and let it sit for a second. Because the jalapenos start to cook down immediately, you'll quickly see that how much room in the jar will change. So if you give it like 2 minutes, come back and push on it, you'll see that things have compressed a little bit, and it allows me to better gauge if I need more peppers in there or not. So you can see this jar has been sitting a little bit longer, and when I push it, you can see I have room for more peppers. I'm trying to stay under this line right here, and when I push it, you can see I can squeeze a couple more peppers in there, because they'll continue to shrink down or soften further even in the canner. So that looks about right. I can top it off with the rest of the brine. There we go. And that jar's ready for its lid. Yes, buddy. Once I have filled the jars with the peppers, the brine, and debubbled them and make sure they're at the correct headspace, I take a paper towel soaked with a little bit of vinegar and wipe each rim so that I can get a good seal. Because there's sugar in this brine, I want to make sure that the rims are very clean. Then I place a clean lid on each jar, and then I will put the rings on just finger tight, and into the canner they go. So I'm just waiting for the canner to get to a really good roiling boil, and then I will set the timer for 10 minutes. So the canner is all done. We ended up with 13 jars of pickled jalapenos from 6 pounds of jalapenos. I'm very happy with it. You can hear the jars are tinking away. Every canner loves to hear that sound. It means our jars are sealing and cooling down properly. You can see how packing the jars full does really make a difference over here. Where I got the jars really nicely full and packed, you don't see a layer of brine at the bottom. You just see a jar full of peppers. Here, this was probably my last jar. I didn't get it nearly as tight and full of peppers, and you can see the brine layer at the bottom. But they will all store great. They will all be delicious. Now let's go deal with the caterpillars on the kale. To treat the caterpillars, I use BT. BT is a bacteria that, when ingested by the caterpillars, disturbs their gut lining and stops them from eating. It's an effective organic pesticide that I find works better than just covering your plants. When you just cover your plants with a netting or a row cover, there is still a chance that the cabbage moth will get underneath there and continue to lay their eggs. Before I spray the plants with the BT, I like to just take off the caterpillars that I do see. The caterpillars can still do a little bit of damage before they consume the BT, so I like to just remove all the ones I can see first before I apply the spray. That and they kind of interfere with the spray making contact. As you can see, these plants have quite a bit of the caterpillars on them. If you wanted to limit spraying altogether, you can come out and just pick them off as you see them and smush them. But I like to have, life gets busy, and I like to have the added security of knowing that the plants are protected with a layer of BT. They blend in very well. That's why I like the BT as well. It's easy to miss one, especially when they're little. And it doesn't take long for them to do a significant amount of damage. And while I don't mind the odd hole here and there on my produce, I don't want them to defoliate the entire plant. So once I think I've removed most of the caterpillars, I go ahead and I mix up the BT based on the instructions on the back of the packet. I have 2 liters of water already in my pump sprayer, and then you can see the application rate on the back. For 10 liters of water, mix up 30 liters of the concentrate. Since I only have 2 liters, I'm only going to do a fifth. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to add just a little bit of dish soap, just a couple drops, and the rosemary. I like to put a generous amount. I want to see if it works to fertilize the plants via their leaves. So I'm going to put some of this fertilizer in my water as well and see if that helps. I see a little bit of yellowing on the plants. So if I can nip that in the butt in this spray too, might as well try it. I certainly don't think it'll hurt. I'm going to give it a good shake and get the pump. Now you want to ensure that you get the top of the leaves, the bottom of the leaves, right in the center. You want to cover the plants in your spray. You can see how the spray is dripping off the plants. That's how saturated you want the plants to be. So once you're done spraying the affected plants, all you have to do is come back about once a week and check to see if you're still seeing caterpillar damage. If you are, then you can repeat the application until the caterpillar damage stops. We're getting kind of late in the season now. I'm not seeing very many cabbage moths still flying around. This was probably the last generation. We'll come back and see in a week and see if I see any more green caterpillars, but I don't expect there to be. But we will keep an eye on it for sure.